Last night we also began the process of once again re-engaging the governing board and the utility costs of all 4 of our elementary campuses. And one of the things in last month's meeting that I did is I included the ball fields at Superstition Mountain in the utility cost for SMES. And that wasn't fair for me to do, because in some respects those are different. We know that the ball fields are used beyond just what we as a school use them, and so to have those utility costs attributed to SMES doesn't make sense. In addition, I also included at SMES last month the utility costs for the J-Pod, which isn't fair either. And so we pulled both of those costs out of the utility cost for SMES to give a more accurate comparison of utility costs for all 4 elementary schools. I also asked our transportation department to begin taking a look at what cost, if any, there would be for new bus routes or the transportation impact of a school closure. And what we found is that regardless of what school were to close, if the governing board decides to close a school, there will be a transportation cost increase. And the reason for that is because even though we're transporting the same number of kids in general, in some cases there's more kids, but we're still transporting by and large the same number, we will need more drivers to transport that number because the number is going to fewer places, and so we'll have to run more routes at the same time than we are currently having to run. So when you look at that document, you'll see that there, depending upon which school were to close, the number of routes that would have to be added, and those routes could equate to new hires. So you'll also see in that same part of the graph the cost of those new hires that the district would have to incur should campus A, B, C, or D be scheduled to close. There's also additional fuel costs in any one of those scenarios. And so when you look on that graph, you begin to see, again, square footage, enrollment, class sizes, utility costs, increased in transportation costs should that school close. I also think it's important that we as an organization make sure that we're understanding not only cost savings, but potentially cost liability. And when I say that, all of our campuses at some point in time are going to need repairs, whether it's air conditioning, paint, carpet, roof. That's just the reality of facilities. And so I think it's important that the governing board understands what the potential cost liability is on each of those 4 elementary campuses. Not that it's a cost savings, but obviously at some point in time it will be a cost to the organization. And so you'll see what each of one of those campuses' cost liability is projected to be. And in the backup, you'll also see where those numbers were generated from. So for example, a roof repair or a new roof or carpet repair, you'll see by each campus the projected need that's there and the cost associated with it. And again, the whole purpose is for the governing board to have as much information as they can, that when they sit down and say, you know, we're in a financial situation, is a school closure a viable option, not only emotionally but logically? Can we accommodate classes, students? What impact does transportation have? What about utilities? What about cost liability? Transportation is an interesting one, and I explained to you what that document reflects. In terms of any one of our campuses, school closure will mean additional routes, which could mean additional drivers, and there's the number that it indicates what that would cost. There's a possibility, though, in transportation to accommodate those routes without actually hiring new drivers. And the way we would be able to do that is to adjust our bell schedules. And so you'll also see in the document section a bell schedule proposal that would allow us to go from 4 elementary campuses to 3 elementary campuses, accommodate the new routes with existing staffing and not needing to hire new staff, therefore not incurring that cost that is associated with the new staff hires that would be required by the new routes.